Hey Nicole, we're going to go and break down your tree riding uh, and your carving to see how we can go and find some improvements. So the first thing we're going to note about these trees is it's very tight and doesn't really look like too much snow, so you're going to be limited on what you can actually do in these things. But that said, there is slight improvements you can do to go and make it easier. The first thing you want to do if you want to go and ride trees more aggressive and smoother is you're going to need to change your fall line. Right now, you're taking very long across slopes, so you're going in getting very diagonal across the slope. This is really good for controlling speed and managing it, but it's going to make it so it's impossible to do a fast turn out. So because your board's angled like slightly uphill here, the turn radius you'd need to set would be way too massive for going in trees. So if you're trying to go from a toe edge over to and transition to your other toe edge, or I mean heel edge to toe edge, you're going to need to go and take a more direct line down the slope, so that way you don't have as big of a turn radius, because this is just going to be too big of a turn radius. The way that you do this is a couple things. First, you're going to want to add a bit more bend to your body. By having a little bit more bend in your legs and having your upper body like butt back a little bit, upper body back more bend in your legs, you'll be able to kick out your legs quicker. And being able to kick out your legs quicker will give you more room to go and kill speed. Because right now you're relying on that angle of the slope to go and speed manage, what's completely okay. I do similar stuff when riding through trees like this. I don't think I'd really be charging with this amount of snow. But if you do want to charge more, you're going to need to go and add more bend into your legs because you're going to need to make really fast actions. So when riding trees like this without much snow, the strategy that you generally use is squatting down a bit more, staying more hunched over, and this is going to burn a lot more energy, but it's going to just let you go and kick out that back leg way quicker and move from a more, because you're already squatted down more, that will let you go and instantly load weight into your edge more, letting you kill speed faster. Because in this tall of a position, if you wanted to go fast and dump speed, you'd have to go and squat down more before being able to go and squat on this much of a pitch. This is more generally done when there's more snow, and that brings us to the last thing that you can do to make tree riding easier, and that is just choosing your lines. So generally when we're riding trees, it's with powder, and you're trying to go and find lines that you're comfortable. You could straight bomb and chew a pow slash and then a transition. So if we go a little bit further here, so for example, say there's like 20 centimeters, what I would do is I'd be coming in on an angle, a lot of bend in the legs. I'd do a little pow slash here. I'd come in on the heels and then I'd do a quick turn here, pow slash down over this place, and then transition to the heels. Instead of trying to go angle, angle all the way down, this is going to be a lot more explosive and a lot harder to control, so it'd be tough because you don't really know the snow conditions. But that's really like what I'm looking for when I'm trees is a little bit of mounds like this, a little bit of patches of soft snow, and little lines that I can then hold through with a good ride out after. Uh, the other thing you can do to ride trees a little bit faster is the falling leaf carve. I know people don't really do it because it's more a beginner technique, but if you wanted to go from this position and then turn over this way, it would actually be a lot smaller of a turn radius to let your other foot come out and then do a switch heel side turn down here. And that's just like heel edge to heel edge. It's not something that you want to do all the time because it's not the best for flow, but in trees like this and trying to ride tight angles, it can be really beneficial. So here, instead of going and needing to do a full turn radius, instead you could let your back foot come out and get into that switch heel edge, and that would let you pivot into a toe edge pretty easily. And that's just another option for trees, because that's really the key to riding trees is having a bit more bend in your legs so you're ready to go and dump speed if you need to, and choosing the lines and looking to where you can go and kill that speed and trying to move with as little bit of extra movement as possible. So here, because your boards are so angled uphill, it's a massive movement to get onto your other toe edge. So you could go and solve this by either taking a more direct line down the slope. The downside of that is you're going to take more speed, or you could go get onto your switch heel edge. So if you're trying to just get down the trees with minimal effort, I'd highly recommend implementing the falling leaf carve or the falling leaf turn, whatever you want to call it. It just is a good way to go and get down treacherous terrain. And if you're trying to ride it more aggressive and more smooth, I would recommend adding more bend to your legs, looking at where you can dump speed, where you can go faster, so you don't need to rely on holding as constant of an angle. And that's going to let you attack it just with more control and power. It takes a lot more energy, so it's not something I generally do. I usually only do that if it's good tree runs and I'm having fun in the powder, but that is the strategy you use to ride trees more. And this is actually my second time recording this video because the last one I spent 15 minutes on. And that's because your technique here is really good. There's a lot to like about it. And it took me a long time to actually figure out what was happening. And what's happening is very niche, but it's something that when you fix it, it's going to be super, super nice for adding more power. So basically what's happening here is you're reliant is how you're going and doing your toe edge and doing your weight transfer from your squatted position to your tall position. So for example here, see how you're coming in, you're in the squatted position, you're going and turning from the squatted position, and then you're going and holding the squatted position, switching to your toe edge, and as you switch to your toe edge, you're fully extended. This timing is actually just slightly off, and you're not fully utilizing that up and down motion in a way that's going to let you turn more aggressive. And because you're going and straightening out so much, see how straight your body is here? This is making it so you need to rely on leaning to get onto your toe edge. So leaning toe edge turns are great for casual groomers, but on rough, sketchy conditions like this, it's going to be harder to be balanced and put power and change edges. Because when you lean, it goes and puts your head further away from your snowboard, it's going to make it so you need to do a bigger movement to get back to neutral. So what's happening here, we'll go and show you an example so you can better visualize it, is basically what's happening is you're going from your tall position on your toe edge, switching to your squatted down position, and then trying to do your turn from your squatted down position. And then when you're trying to switch the turn, you're going and switching the turn while you're still squatted down. So you can see you're on your heel edge to flat base, still squatted. And then you go and extend and lean into that toe edge. So actually, let's explain this a little more. Basically, what's happening here is you're not using this squatted motion to build power or relieve tension because you want to be using that extension to go from heel edge to flat base, not flat base to toe edge. Because going and extending into that toe edge makes it so you don't have enough bend in your legs to go and load pressure in. So the only way you can hold that toe edge is leaning. If we go and compare that to some of my carving here, let me just slow-mo it. So here I'm going and loading the weight in, and look at when I'm finished my edge turn and I want to move to flat base to start transitioning edges, that's when I move to flat base and I extend my legs. One sec. Let's watch this through in speed and then we'll go and break it down. So I go and extend myself well and through that flat base transition. Flat base, extend. Edge, load. So you're just going and doing bent down for flat base, and then once you're going and moving to your other edge, then you're extending. So you're just doing it a little bit early. For some reason, it doesn't let me go frame by frame when I have it hyper slow-mo, so let me just adjust this really quick so we can break it down more. So when I'm doing a turn, I'm going and first, when I'm finishing the turn, I'm going and sorry, it's just visually glitching there. I wonder why. Doesn't matter, sorry. When I'm going and switching to my toe edge, the first thing I'm doing is extending into his flat base position. And this extension into his flat base position is then what lets me go and be light enough to go and get that smooth transfer of power. And from there, I get onto my toe edge, and only once my toe edge is dug in do I start loading down into it. And the reason why we're going and delaying this is because that's just how power and momentum works on a snowboard. So the proper turning technique you're just doing it slightly off timed. You want to go load in once you're on that edge, load down, and as you're coming off that edge, that's when you straighten yourself. And then once you're finished transferring to your toe edge, you're now on your toe edge, that's when you load weight back in. Let me turn it back to slow-mo because that wasn't working. So I'm going, digging in that toe edge, pushing in, unweighting, flat base, and then once I get on that edge, then I load in again. Unweight back into flat base, get on the edge, and then load in. But there's one more thing that I'm doing differently here that you should implement if you want faster, more powerful carves, and that is maintaining my upper body in this hinge position throughout the full motion. So even when I'm going and extending my legs maximum, I still have my upper body a little bit hinged forward, chest over, and this is because if you go fully straight, you're not going to be able to fully use your body to utilize leverage. Think of this as think of this as like, okay, when you're trying to like pull something open, if you go and try to do it with this curl in here, you'll be able to put more tension into your fingers and curl it in. But if you're flat, you're going to have to rotate everything at once to put pressure into that final point. So that's why we want to keep this curl in our body, because that lets us put more torsion and use our body to go and put more pressure onto this point, letting us go and load deeper edge pressure without being as away from our snowboard. So if we go and look at, what would be the best turn for this? If we go and look at this heel side turn, no, I think actually this one's better. If we go and look at this heel side turn, with the amount of edge pressure I'm holding, if my whole body was straight and extended, I'd be up over here. So my head would be over here, really far away from my snowboard, or over here in order to get that same amount of edge pressure. But by going and putting my upper body forward a little bit extra and keeping it there, it's letting me go and pivot more onto that heel side point. On the toe edge, this is even more true. See how I'm keeping my upper body a little bit over into where I'm transferring? So I'm keeping this a little bit of hinge in my hips, a little bit of bend in my legs, not ever fully extending, because fully extending makes it so we lose that little bit of grip, that little bit of traction. And this is letting me go and hold a more edgeline position without being as leaned over and having more weight over my board. And this is really true for when we're looking at snow conditions like this, where it's bumpy and in control. When it's bumpy like this, you're not going to be able to trust your edge. So leaning works great when you're going and having smooth slow, but bump like this, you need a little bit of bend in your legs, a little bit of hinge in your hips in order to go and deal with any funk that comes this way. So the fact that you're relying on leaning on terrain like this is going and making it so you're super extended, and this is making you really committed because your weight is set really far away from your snowboard. If you had your butt back a little bit, your upper body hinged forward a bit more, you'd be able to get the same amount of toe pressure without going and having your body weight as far away from your snowboard. Because right now what's happening is, because you're in this position so far away from your board, you're needing to go and squat down before transitioning edges. So see, you're going tall, then you're switching to flat base, then at flat base, you're squatting down, and then you're going and turning into your position from that squat down position. And then you're going and straightening yourself back up. And that's making it so you need to do this like up and down motion, but you're not doing it to drive power through, but you're doing it to rebalance. So your issue is the fact that as you go and transition edges, you're going and you're unweighting too soon. So that's making it, or too late, I mean. So here, you're in your squatted down position, you switch to your toe edge, and then once you're at your toe edge, then you extend your legs. So you're extending into that toe edge instead of loading into that toe edge. Then when you're switching into your heels, you're going and squatting down into that flat base position. So you're loading into that flat base instead of unweighting into it. Then you're trying to drive power into your heels, but you're already in your squatted down position, so you don't have much power to drive. And then you're going and squatting down more to go and weight into your flat base. And then to get onto the toe edge, you're pushing into your shins, relying on leaning. So looking at this one more time, you can see that I'm coming in, loading my weight onto my heel edge, and then when I'm done with my heel edge turn, I'm unweighting, straightening, while keeping a little bit of bend in my upper body still. And then once I'm engaging the toe edge, then I'm getting on it and loading into that toe edge. Unweighting, hitting the toe edge, then weighting. So you're doing all the right stuff, you're just doing it slightly in the wrong order, and I want to see a little bit more bend in your legs, a little more hinge in the upper body, because that should go and give you more micro control and more movement that will really help with that rough terrain. So let me know if this makes sense. And yeah, it's a bit more of a tough one because your form's really close. You're doing the right stuff, you're just doing it slightly out of sync, and you could be relying less on leaning based turns if you want to go and try carve through that rough terrain with more aggression and more style, you know? So let me know how it goes, and let me know when you need more feedback.